I'm a naval officer in Hormuz. Our destroyers keep detecting submarines we can't identify.
The Combat Information Center had 12 displays and 8 workstations. That was it for tracking everything within 200 nautical miles of our position. I sat at Console 4, Sonar Analysis, watching green lines pulse across a black screen while the USS Carney cut through the strait at 12 knots. The only sound was the air conditioning and the occasional radio check from the tactical action officer. The consoles were older Raytheon systems, probably 15 years out of date, arranged in 2 rows facing a main display board that showed our position relative to the Iranian coast. 4 on the starboard side, 4 on the port. Each one showed different sensor data: surface radar, air search, electronic warfare, sonar. The temperature was kept at exactly 68 degrees Fahrenheit, standard protocol for the equipment. The CIC itself was maybe 30 by 40 feet. Gray bulkheads, gray deck, red lighting after sunset to preserve night vision. No windows. 2 watertight doors, one forward, one aft, both dogged shut during general quarters. There was a coffee station bolted to the bulkhead near the aft door, always half full, always burnt. Someone had left a tactical manual on the shelf above my console, spine cracked, pages dog-eared. The cover said, Submarine Recognition and Classification, 5th edition. I'd been sitting there for about 3 hours. My watch started at 2,000 hours and ran until midnight. 4 hours of monitoring passive sonar returns in one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. The pay was lieutenant junior grade salary, which beat the enlisted rate I'd been making on the Porter. That was the main thing. The promotion was better, and I got to sit down. The orders came out of nowhere. I got a message 2 weeks back from Nav Perscom I didn't recognize. Subject line just said, Immediate transfer, USS Carney, DDG 64. I figured it was a mistake at first, but I opened it anyway because I'd been expecting rotation orders for a month and wasn't getting anything back. The message was short. Said they needed a sonar tech for forward deployment in the 5th Fleet AOR. Transfer effective immediately. Report to Naval Station Rota, Spain, for flight to Bahrain. Background check and TS/SCI clearance already verified. Start date, 14 days. There was a phone number at the bottom, a DSN line. I called it the next day. A woman answered, identified herself as Commander Vickers, Surface Warfare Officer. She asked if I could be in Rota by the 23rd. I said, sure. She gave me a briefing time and said someone would meet me at the Naval Support Activity in Bahrain. I should have asked more questions. Should have wondered why they needed a sonar tech so urgently they'd cut orders in 48 hours. Should have noticed that the message came from an office I'd never heard of, buried somewhere in the Pentagon's organizational chart where normal personnel commands don't reach. But I didn't ask. I was 28 years old, 3 years out of Annapolis, and tired of watching the Porter rust in Norfolk while waiting for a deployment that kept getting pushed back. The chance to do actual operational work in a theater that mattered, that was enough. The briefing was in one of those prefab buildings off the main base in Bahrain, the kind with window AC units and fluorescent lights that hum. Inside it smelled like industrial cleaner and sweat. Commander Vickers was maybe 45, short gray hair, surface warfare pin on her chest. She didn't waste time. just had me sign some NDAs and asked if I had any issue with extended deployment in a high-threat environment. I said no. She nodded and slid a manila folder across the table. The Carney has been experiencing unusual sonar contacts in the Strait of Hormuz for the past 6 weeks. Contacts that don't correlate with known traffic. Contacts that appear and disappear without following normal submarine operating patterns. I opened the folder. Inside were printouts of sonar data, waterfall displays showing acoustic returns in various frequency ranges. Most of it looked normal. Merchant traffic, fishing boats, the standard noise profile of the strait. But someone had circled certain returns in red marker. Low-frequency contacts, all below 50 Hz, appearing at irregular intervals. These don't match any known submarine class, Vickers continued. Not Russian kilos, not Iranian diesel boats, not our own Virginia class. The acoustic signature is wrong. The operating depth is wrong. The speed and maneuverability are wrong. What do you think they are? I asked. She looked at me with those pale gray eyes. We need someone with fresh eyes, someone who doesn't have preconceptions about what should or shouldn't be down there. That wasn't an answer. I knew it wasn't an answer, but I nodded anyway.
You'll be reporting directly to the operations officer, she said. Lieutenant Corman. He's been tracking these contacts since they started appearing. He'll brief you on the specifics. She stood up, and I understood the meeting was over. One more thing, she said as I reached the door. Don't discuss these contacts with anyone outside your immediate chain of command. That includes other sonar techs, other ships, even other watchstanders in the CIC. This stays compartmentalized. Understood, ma'am. 4 days later, I was standing on the deck of the Carney as we pulled out of Manama. So that's how I ended up here. I showed up for my first watch with my badge and the printed copy of my orders. Went through the normal security checks, met the operations officer, got shown to my rack in officer country. The ship was a standard Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. I'd served on one before, so the layout was familiar. Same narrow passageways, same blue tile deck, same smell of paint and diesel and salt air that never quite leaves. A lieutenant named Corman walked me through the CIC layout and introduced me to the watch team. He was the operations officer, second in command of the Combat Systems Department, responsible for all the sensors and weapon systems that made the ship functional. Corman was maybe 5 feet 10 inches, wiry build, dark hair cut high and tight. He wore his uniform like he'd been born in it, and had this way of looking at the displays that felt like he was reading something I couldn't see. Pale blue eyes, didn't smile much. He had the look of someone who hadn't been sleeping well. Slight shadows under his eyes, a tightness around his mouth. He stopped at console 4 and tapped the screen. "This is yours," he said. "You're monitoring the AN/SQS-53 sonar array. We're running passive most of the time to avoid giving away our position. You're logging contacts every 15 minutes in the system." I looked at the display. It showed a waterfall pattern, frequency on the horizontal axis, time on the vertical. Dozens of lines representing merchant traffic, fishing boats, the normal acoustic signature of one of the busiest waterways on Earth. I'd seen this display 1,000 times before. Corman pulled up a chair and sat down. "The contacts we're tracking don't show up on this display," he said. I looked at him. "Then how do I monitor them?" He pointed to a secondary screen I hadn't noticed, mounted to the left of the main display. Smaller, older, different interface entirely. The housing was different too. Looked like it had been retrofitted recently, the mounting bracket still showing fresh welds. That one. The secondary display showed the same waterfall pattern, but the frequency range was different, lower, below 50 Hz, well into the infrasound range where most conventional sonar doesn't even bother looking. That's the realm of seismic activity, whale calls, distant ship noise, background data that gets filtered out because it's not tactically relevant. That's not standard equipment, I said. No, it was installed 3 weeks ago. NAVC sent a tech team from Diego Garcia. They didn't explain what it was for, just mounted it, calibrated it, and left. Corman leaned back. But it works. Shows contacts the main array doesn't pick up. I studied the display. There was one contact visible right now, a faint return at 23 Hz, bearing 170, range approximately 12,000 yards, moving slow, maybe 3 knots. The return was faint but steady, a vertical line on the waterfall that descended slowly as time progressed. "What is it?" I asked. Corman shrugged. "That's what you're here to figure out. We've logged 43 of them so far. Different bearings, different ranges, but all in the same frequency band, between 15 and 30 Hz, all moving between 2 and 5 knots. None of them correlate with surface traffic, and none of them match known submarine profiles." "Have you tried active sonar?" His expression hardened slightly. "Once, 2 weeks ago. We pinged a contact that was sitting stationary off our port quarter. Range 5,000 yards, depth 300 feet. What happened?" "It pinged us back." I waited. Same frequency, same pulse duration, exact copy of our transmission. Then it dropped to 800 feet and disappeared off our scopes entirely. He stood up. Since then, CO's orders are passive monitoring only. No active emissions, no attempts to classify or engage. "Why?" "Because," Corman said quietly, "we don't know if they're foreign assets or something else. And until we know, we don't provoke them." Something else. That phrase hung in the air between us. "Your job is to log every contact that appears on that display," he continued, his voice returning to its professional tone. "Time, bearing, range, frequency, duration. Keep the logs detailed and accurate. Send me a summary at the end of every watch. Don't discuss what you see with anyone else." "Not even the TAO?"
The TAO knows. Everyone on the watch team knows. But this stays in the CIC. No one else needs to hear about phantom submarines that don't show up on our primary sensors. I nodded. Corman started to walk away, then stopped. "One more thing. If you see a contact at a frequency of exactly 19 Hz, call me immediately. Day or night, on watch or off. You call me first, before anyone else." "Why 19? "Because that's the frequency they use before they surface." That was 6 days ago. Since then, I'd logged 47 contacts on the secondary display. All of them in the same frequency range. All of them moving at speeds between 2 and 5 knots. None of them correlating with known submarine traffic, surface contacts, or biologics. I'd sent reports up the chain every watch. SITREP format. Time, location, bearing, speed, acoustic signature. The operations officer would acknowledge receipt and file them. That was it. No feedback, no analysis, no tasking. It was the strangest deployment protocol I'd ever seen. Normally, when you detect an unidentified submarine, the whole ship goes to a heightened alert status. You track it, classify it, report it up the chain to Fleet Command. You coordinate with other ships in the area. I pulled up the bearing plot and tracked it for 5 minutes. Perfect circle, exactly 2,000 yards in diameter, maintaining a constant depth of approximately 400 feet. Speed steady at 4 knots. I checked the display settings, verified the bearing resolution, confirmed the range markers. Everything was calibrated correctly. The contact was really moving in a perfect geometric circle. I pulled up the chart overlay and checked the location. The circle was centered directly beneath a known shipping route. Right now, there were 3 surface contacts transiting overhead according to the main radar display.
a tanker flagged out of Kuwait, a container ship registered in Singapore, and a small dhow, probably fishing. The secondary sonar contact was circling beneath all of them. Corman arrived 2.5 minutes later, moving fast through the aft CIC door. He was in his uniform, boots laced, like he'd been sleeping in it. His hair was slightly messed, but his eyes were sharp and focused. He didn't say anything, just came to stand behind my chair and stared at the secondary display. I watched his face in the reflection on the screen. His jaw tightened. "How long has it been doing that?" he asked quietly.
"Since it appeared, about 6 minutes now. Pull up the acoustic signature. It's full spectrum analysis." I switched the display mode to show the detailed frequency breakdown. The contact wasn't just transmitting at 19 Hz, it was transmitting a complex pattern of harmonics, sub-frequencies that pulsed in a regular rhythm. It's a primary tone at 19 Hz, then secondary tones at 38 Hz, 76 Hz, 152 Hz. Perfect mathematical doublings. "That's not natural," I said. "No, it's not." Corman leaned closer. "And it's not mechanical, either. No diesel engine produces a harmonic series that clean." We watched the contact complete another circle. The movement was so precise it looked like a computer simulation, not a real physical object moving through water. The internal comes crackled. "Sonar, Tau, report status on contact bearing 045. Corman picked up the handset. "Tau, operations officer. Contact is circling at fixed position. Its frequency, 19 Hz. Recommend we increase distance and maintain observation." "Operations officer, Tau, stand by." We waited. The contact continued its circle, methodical and unhurried. The Tau came back on. "Operations officer, Tau, CO is aware. Maintain current heading and speed. Continue monitoring." Corman's hand tightened on the handset. "Tau, operations officer, recommend we at least come to a new heading to open the range." "Negative. Code's orders are maintain current course and speed. Continue monitoring." "TAO out." Corman set the handset down carefully, deliberately, like he was afraid he might throw it otherwise. "He wants us to stay close to it," I said. "Apparently. Why? I don't know." But the way he said it made me think he did know, or at least suspected, and didn't want to say it out loud. My personal phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen. Text from my brother, Marcus. He's the sonar tech on the USS Porter. It's currently deployed in the Mediterranean out of Rota. We'd enlisted together, gone to Annapolis together, ended up in the same field. He was 2 years older, made lieutenant 6 months before I did. The message said, "You seeing weird shit on your scopes?" I stared at it for a second. Casa and I hadn't talked shop in months. We'd email occasionally, trade stories about bad COs and worse coffee, but we never discussed operational details. Different fleets, different problems, different classification levels. I glanced at Corman. He was focused on the display, not paying attention to me. I typed back, "Why?" 3 dots appeared immediately. Marcus was typing. "Got a new display installed last month. Special sonar rig, low frequency stuff. Shows contacts that don't make sense. Navy won't explain it. Ain't. You got one too?" My stomach dropped. I looked at the secondary display mounted to the left of my console, at the contact moving in its perfect circle. I typed, "Same here. What kind of contacts?" The reply came fast. "Things that move wrong. Things that show up in multiple places at once. Things that disappear and reappear without transiting the space in between." I felt cold. I typed, "Where are you right now?" "Off Crete." "You? Hormuz?" 3 dots. "Sten. Dude, that's 3,000 miles apart." I looked at Corman's back. He was still watching the display, hands clasped behind him in that parade rest stance officers fall into without thinking. I typed, "Are your contacts circular?" Dots. "No. Linear. But they repeat. Same route, same speed, over and over, like they're following a pattern. How many have you logged? T1 in the past 3 weeks. I logged 48 in 6 days. Whatever was happening in the strait, it was more concentrated here, more active. I was about to respond when the secondary display flickered. Not the whole screen, just the contact. It blinked out for half a second, then reappeared. But not in the same place. It was now bearing 090, range 6,000 yards, still moving in a circle. But the center of the circle had shifted 4 nautical miles east in less than a second. I checked the time stamp on the display. No gap. The data stream was continuous. The contact had jumped from one location to another without traveling the distance in between. Did you see that? I asked. Corman was already reaching for the handset. KOA Operations Officer. Contact just relocated instantaneously. Previous position bearing 045 at 8,000 yards. Current position bearing 090 at 6,000 yards. Operations Officer. Dow. Say again? Contact jumped. No transit time between positions. Immediate relocation. Silence on the other end. Then, stand by. I heard footsteps on the deck outside the CIC. Quick, purposeful. The forward door opened and Commander Price stepped through. Commander Price was the commanding officer, the captain of the ship, though we didn't use that term in the Navy. He was maybe 43. Tall, graying at the temples, with 20 years of service and 2 previous Gulf deployments. He had a reputation as a calm, methodical officer, the kind who didn't make impulsive decisions. He walked straight to my console without acknowledging anyone else in the room. "Show me," he said. I pointed to the secondary display. Contact appeared at 0213, sir, bearing 045 at 8,000 yards. Frequency 19 Hz, moving in a circular pattern. At 0228, it relocated instantaneously to bearing 090, 6,000 yards. It's no transit time. Price studied the screen. His face showed nothing. Is this consistent with previous contacts? No, sir, Corman said. Previous contacts maintained fixed positions or moved linearly. This is new behavior. And we've never observed instantaneous relocation before. Price nodded once. Classification? Unknown, sir. Best assessment. Corman hesitated for just a moment. It's not a submarine. It's not following any known laws of underwater acoustics or physics. He stopped. It's what, Lieutenant? Sir, I don't have a classification for what this is. Price pulled a small green notebook from his pocket, the kind officers use for official notes, and Logson wrote something down. Then he looked at me. Log this contact as equipment malfunction. Sonar return inconsistent with known physical parameters. Probable system error. I blinked. Sir, the system is functioning normally. All diagnostics are green. This is a real contact. That's not what the log will reflect, Lieutenant. His voice was calm, but firm. You'll log this as an equipment issue. Is that understood? I looked at Corman. He was staring at the CO with an expression I couldn't quite read. Understood, sir, I said. Price turned to Corman. You see anything else on that display that doesn't fit normal parameters? You reported to me first, not to Dow, not Fleet Command. Me? Clear. Yes, sir. The CO nodded and walked back toward the forward door. He stopped with his hand on the frame and looked back at us. And gentlemen, we don't discuss these anomalies outside this space with anyone. That includes other ships, other commands, and especially not over unsecured communications. Then he left. The door closed behind him with a heavy metallic clang. I looked at Corman. He's covering it up. No, Corman said quietly. He's following orders. From who? Corman didn't answer. He just sat down in the chair next to me and stared at the secondary display. The contact completed another circle at its new location, then blinked out again. This time it reappeared, bearing 180, range 10,000 yards, directly astern of our current position. It's tracking us, I said. Corman nodded slowly. or hurting us. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. Do your contacts ever disappear? I looked at the secondary display at the contact sitting directly behind our ship, and I typed, all the time. Why? The reply came immediately, because ours are getting closer every time they reappear. I felt my chest tighten. How much closer? Dots. Last one showed up 200 yards off our port beam. Stayed there for 6 minutes. Then vanished. Okay. When it came back, it was 100 yards out. When did this happen? 20 minutes ago. It's still out there. We're running at flank speed, trying to put distance between us and it, but every time we think we've cleared it, it reappears closer. I looked at the contact on my screen. 10,000 yards, about 5 nautical miles. Not that close yet, but getting closer, I typed. Have you tried active sonar once? Last week, it pinged us back. The same thing that happened to the Carney 2 weeks ago. What frequency did it use? I asked. Same frequency we transmitted, like it was copying us. I thought about the harmonic series I'd seen earlier. It's a perfect mathematical doubling of frequencies. 19, 38, 76, 152. Marcus, do me a favor. Pull your logs and check if any of your contacts transmitted at exactly 19 hertz. Dots for almost a minute. Then, 3 of them. First one was 18 days ago. 18 days. The Carney had detected its first 19 hertz contact 2 weeks ago, 14 days. Before that, according to Corman, they'd only seen higher frequency returns. Did anything change after the first 19 hertz contact? I asked. Yeah, they started appearing more frequently, okay? And they started moving in patterns instead of just random tracks. The same progression we were seeing. It was learning or adapting or something. I was about to reply when the secondary display flickered again. The contact disappeared from bearing 180. I watched the screen, waiting for it to reappear. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15. Nothing. Did we lose it? I asked. Corman was leaning forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the blank display. Maybe, or maybe, the main sonar display lit up. Not the secondary system. The primary and SQS-53, the main tactical sonar array that showed everything within 50,000 yards. A new contact had appeared on the waterfall. Strong return, much stronger than anything else on the screen. Bearing 000 directly ahead of us. Range, 500 yards. Depth, 400 feet. I felt my hands go cold. Tau, sonar, I said, keeping my voice level. New contact on primary sonar. Bearing 0. Range, 500 yards. Depth, 400 feet. Sonar, Tau. Classify contact. I looked at the acoustic signature. It was the same pattern I'd been seeing on the secondary display. 19 hertz, fundamental, with harmonic overtones, but much, much louder. The signal was so strong it was saturating the array, creating vertical white lines across the entire frequency spectrum. It's unable to classify Tau. Signal strength is off the scale. Corman stood up and moved to the main display board. His face had gone pale. Another contact appeared on the primary sonar, bearing 180. Range, 500 yards. Depth, 400 feet. Directly astern. Then another, bearing 090. Range, 500 yards. And another, bearing 270. Range, 500 yards. For contacts, north, south, east, west. All at exactly 500 yards. All at exactly 400 feet depth. All transmitting the same harmonic pattern. We were surrounded. Tau, sonar, multiple new contacts, 4 total, positioned at cardinal points around our location. All at 500 yards. All at 400 feet. Sonar, Tau, are they moving? I watched the displays. Contacts were stationary, holding position relative to our movement. As we moved forward at 12 knots, they moved with us, maintaining that exact 500-yard separation. Negative Tau. Contacts are stationary relative to our position. They are maintaining formation with us. I heard murmuring from the other watch stations. The radar operators had noticed. The electronic warfare tech had noticed. Everyone in the CIC was starting to realize something very wrong was happening. The TAO's voice came over the net, tight and controlled. All stations dial, report status. Surface search, green. Air search, green. Electronic warfare, green. My turn. I looked at the 4 contacts holding formation around us, looked at Corman's pale face, looked at the secondary display still showing nothing. Sonar, green, I said. It was a lie. Nothing about this was green. Corman moved to the internal comms panel and picked up the handset. CO Operations Officer, recommend we come to all stop and assess the tactical situation. Commander Price's voice came back immediately, and he didn't sound concerned at all. Negative. Maintain current course and speed. Sir, we have 4 unidentified contacts holding formation with us at close range. I'm aware, Lieutenant. Maintain course and speed. That's in order. Corman's hand tightened on the handset. He stood there for a few seconds, then carefully set it back in the cradle. He knows, Corman said quietly, more to himself than to me. He knows what they are, and he's not telling us. I pulled out my phone and texted Marcus, the contacts. Have they ever surrounded you? The reply took almost a minute. No, they've approached us individually, but never in formation. Why? We have 4 of them, cardinal points, 500 yards out, holding position as we move. Jesus, get out of there. Can't seal, won't authorize course. Change. Then you need to. The message cut off mid-sentence. I looked at my phone. No signal. That didn't make sense. We had satellite communications. Cell coverage in the strait was spotty, but I'd had at least 2 bars a minute ago. I checked the phone settings. No service. Not even emergency calls. Anyone else lose their phone signal? I asked. The electronics warfare tech checked his phone. Yeah, nothing. One of the radar operators. Same here. Corman pulled out his phone. No signal. They're jamming us, he said. Some kind of electromagnetic interference. From what? I asked. Those contacts are underwater. They can't generate RF interference from 400 feet down. Apparently, they can. I looked at the main sonar display. The 4 contacts were still there, still holding formation, still transmitting their harmonic pattern at levels that should have been impossible for anything underwater. Then they started moving. Not toward us. Vertically, all 4 contacts began ascending simultaneously. The depth reading on the nearest one changed from 400 feet to 350 feet. Then 300. Then 250. Tau, sonar. All contacts are ascending. Sonar, tau, rate of ascent. I watched the numbers change. Approximately 50 feet per minute. Steady rate. That was fast. Too fast for a normal submarine, which would risk damage ascending that quickly. But these weren't normal submarines. Corman grabbed my shoulder. We need to see this. What? Need to go topside. Now, before they surface. I looked at him. We can't leave our posts during watch. The hell we can't. Come on. He was already moving toward the aft door. I hesitated for just a second, then followed him. We left the CIC and moved through the passageway toward the nearest ladder to the main deck. The ship was quiet at this hour, most of the crew asleep, only essential watchstanders awake. Our footsteps echoed on the metal deck. What are we going to see? I asked as we climbed. I don't know, but I'm not trusting the sensors anymore. I need to see it with my own eyes. We emerged onto the main deck. The night air hit me like a wall hot, humid, thick with salt. The strait spread out around us, dark water under a moonless sky. The Iranian coast was a line of lights to the north, the Omani coast to the south. Between them, the narrowest point of one of the world's most strategic waterways. The deck was empty. No watchstanders, no lookouts visible from where we stood. Corman moved to the port rail and looked over the side. I followed. The water was glowing, not bioluminescence. I'd seen that before teeny organisms that light up when disturbed, creating green sparkles in the wake. This wasn't that. This was a steady, uniform glow emanating from deep below the surface. Pale blue-green, like the emergency lighting in the CIC, but softer. This was coming from 4 distinct points around the ship, each one growing brighter as we watched. Still ascending, Corman said quietly. I could see the glow intensifying, spreading as whatever was down there came closer to the surface. The light cast strange shadows on the water, making the small waves look like they were frozen mid-motion. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Signal was back to bars. A text from Marcus had come through. We had to surface one. Ordered active sonar, full power. It responded and started ascending. Broke the surface 3 minutes ago. My hands felt numb. What did it look like? Dots. Then, not sending pictures. Can't. Every photo we take corrupts. But I'll tell you, it's not a submarine. It's not anything we built. Get your CO2. Turn the ship around. Get out of there while you can. I showed the text to Corman. He read it, his face illuminated by the phone screen and the growing glow from the water. We can't leave, he said. Price won't authorize it. Then we need to convince him. With what? He already knows more than we do. He's following orders from someone higher up the chain, someone who wants us here for this. The glow was getting brighter. Could see the shape now beneath the portside glow. Something large, rising slowly, distorting the light as it approached. It wasn't smooth. The silhouette was angular, geometric, made of panels or segments that seemed to move independently of each other. Oh my God, I whispered. Corman had his phone out, trying to take a picture. The camera app opened, focused, and he pressed the shutter. The image appeared on his screen for half a second, dark shape rising through. Glowing water, then the whole photo corrupted. Pixels scrambled, rearranged themselves into static. Then the file deleted itself. Same thing Marcus said. Corman muttered. He tried again. Same result. The shape was maybe 30 feet below the surface now, close enough that I could make out details. It looked like it was made of overlapping plates, each one maybe 10 feet across, arranged in a pattern that hurt to look at. Not because it was disturbing, but because my eyes couldn't quite focus on it. The geometry was wrong somehow, like my brain couldn't process the angles. And it was big, easily as wide as the Carney, maybe wider. How deep is it here? I asked. About 800 feet in this part of the channel. So that thing came up 750 feet in less than 10 minutes. Yeah. The water began to ripple around the glow. Not waves, something else. A disturbance that radiated outward in perfect circles, like sound waves made visible. Then I heard it. Not through the air, through the hull. A low-frequency vibration that I felt in my chest, in my jaw, in the bones of my skull. It's the same sensation I'd felt in the CIC sometimes, when a merchant ship with big diesel engines passed close by, but deeper, much deeper. 19 hertz. That was the frequency. I knew it without checking, because I'd been staring at that number on a screen for 6 days. The thing beneath us was transmitting. We should go back inside, I said. Corman didn't move. It was transfixed, staring at the glowing water. The shape stopped ascending. It held position, maybe 20 feet below the surface, suspended in the water, the glow pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. The panels I'd seen began to move. They rotated, sliding past each other with a grinding sound I could hear even from up on the deck. Metal on metal, or something like metal. The geometry shifted, rearranging itself, forming new configurations. It's doing something, Corman said. I pulled out my phone and tried to call the CIC. No signal again. The electromagnetic interference was back. The panels continued to shift, and slowly a shape emerged from the chaos. A pattern, a form. It looked almost like a face. Not a human face. The proportions were wrong, the symmetry off. Cool, but there were 2 large circular sections that might have been eyes, and an angular arrangement below that might have been a mouth, and the overall impression was of something looking up at us. Jesus Christ, Corman whispered. The two circular sections began to glow brighter than the rest of the structure. Pale white light, like high-intensity LEDs, focused and steady. They were eyes, but something serving the same purpose, and they were looking at us. I grabbed Corman's arm. We need to go. Now. He finally moved, stumbling backward from the rail. We both turned toward the door that would take us back inside, back to the relative safety of steel bulkheads and artificial light. That's when the thing spoke. Not in words, not in any language. But I heard it clearly, resonating through the hole, through my chest, vibrating in my skull. A single pulse, a transmission, a message. And somehow, impossibly, I understood it. We see you. I don't remember running back to the CIC. I remembered the door, the ladder, the passageway, but it's all fragmented. Like my brain was having trouble processing what had just happened. When we came through the aft door of the CIC, everyone was staring at the main display board. All 4 contacts had surfaced. North, south, east, west. Range 500 yards. Depth 0 feet. They were on the surface, surrounding us, and the electromagnetic interference was so strong now that half the displays in the CIC were showing static or corrupted data. Commander Price was standing in the center of the space, hands clasped behind his back, looking at the main board like he was studying a weather report. "Sir," Corman said, his voice tight. "We need to break contact, come to flank speed, and clear the area immediately." Price turned to look at him. His face was calm. "To calm. Negative, Lieutenant." "Sir, we have 4 unknown contacts at close range that have just surfaced. They're clearly not. I'm aware of what they are." "Mr. Corman." Silence. The whole CIC went quiet. "You know what they are?" Corman asked slowly. "Yes, and we're going to maintain position and observe." "Those are my orders." "Orders from whom?" Price's expression hardened. "That's not your concern, Lieutenant. Return to your station." Corman looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just moved back to his position near my console. I sat down at console 4. The secondary display was still blank, whatever these things were. They'd stopped transmitting in the infrasound range once they surfaced. But the main sonar was painting them clearly for large returns, each one approximately 200 feet in diameter, sitting on the surface in perfect formation around our ship. My phone buzzed. Signal was back for a moment. Text from Marcus. "Ours submerged again, went down to 1,000 feet and disappeared." Right. But before it went down, the code got an encrypted message from COM5 "Whatever these things are, the Navy knows about them. This is deliberate." I stared at the message. "The Navy knows. This is deliberate." I looked at Commander Price standing in the center of the CIC, calm and controlled, following orders to keep us in position while 4 impossible objects surrounded our ship. I typed back, "What do you think they want?" The reply came fast. "I think they're studying us, same way we studied them. And I think someone in the Navy made a deal." A deal. Was about to ask what kind of deal when every screen in the CIC went black. Not flickering, not corrupted. Just black. All 12 displays simultaneously. The overhead lights stayed on. The air conditioning kept running. But every computer system, every radar screen, every sonar display went dark. Ours still on. The electronics warfare tech said, But all combat systems are down. Reboot primary systems." The TAO ordered. "Already trying, sir." They're not responding. I looked at the blank screen in front of me. The computer tower under my desk was still humming. I could hear it, feel the vibration through the deck. Power was flowing, but the displays showed nothing. Then, one by one, they came back on, but they weren't showing our systems anymore. Console 1, which should have been showing surface search radar, was displaying a technical schematic. A diagram of the Carney itself, showing the internal compartments, the weapon systems, the engine room, everything. The level of detail was incredibly looked like the original engineering blueprints, maybe better. Console 2 showed a similar schematic of a different ship. I recognized the hull number, DDG-89, the USS Mustin, another destroyer in 5th Fleet. Console 3, DDG-79, the USS Oscar Austin. Each display was showing a different ship. Our ships, American destroyers, cruisers, amphibious assault ships, every vessel in the 5th Fleet area of operations, laid out in perfect technical detail. "What the hell is this?" Vidal asked, but his voice had lost its professional calm. Console 8, which should have been showing communication status, changed to display something else. It looked like a star chart at first dots of light, connected by lines, forming a network. But the scale was wrong. The connections were too close. Then I realized what I was looking at. Ships, thousands of them. Every naval vessel on Earth displayed as a glowing point on a map, connected by lines that showed their patrol routes, their communications networks, their command structures. We were looking at a map of the entire global naval infrastructure, and someone or something had built it. "They're in our systems," Corman said quietly. "They're downloading our databases." Price finally moved. He pulled a red phone from his cradle on the bulkhead, the secure line to Fleet Command. He listened for a moment, then his face went pale. He hung up without saying a word. "Sir?" the Dow asked. "Communications are down. All of them. Satellite, radio, data link, everything were cut off." I pulled out my phone. No signal. I tried to open my messages to Marcus. The app opened, but the conversation was gone. All of it. Every text I had sent, every message I had received, deleted. I checked my photo gallery. The screenshots I had taken of the sonar displays over the past 6 days all gone. The phone was working, just didn't have any record of what I'd seen. "They're erasing it," I said. "They're removing the evidence." The displays changed again. Now they were showing live camera feeds, not from our ship, from somewhere else. I recognized the overhead fluorescent lights, the industrial tile floor, the naval support activity in Bahrain, the building where I'd been briefed by Commander Vickers. Camera angle shifted, moved through the hallway, past the room where I'd signed the NDAs. But there was no camera movement in the image, no shaking, no human motion. Just a smooth, steady glide through the space like the camera itself was floating. "That's NSA Bahrain," Corman said. "How are they accessing those cameras?" The view shifted again. Now it showed what looked like a command center. Multiple screens, watch standards at consoles, a large map display showing the Gulf region. And on that map, I could see the Carney, a small icon representing our ship, surrounded by 4 other icons I didn't recognize. The icons were labeled Contact 01, Contact 02, Contact 03, Contact 04. Someone at Fleet Command was tracking this in real time. They were watching the 4 objects surrounding us. They knew exactly what was happening, and they'd ordered us to stay here anyway. "Sir," I said, turning to Commander Price, "they're showing us what they want us to see. They're demonstrating capability. They want us to know they can access everything." Price didn't respond. He was staring at Console 7, which had just switched to a new display. It was showing a depth chart, a 3D representation of the ocean floor beneath the Strait of Hormuz. Standard bathymetry data looked normal, the channel running southwest to northeast, depths varying from 200 to 800 feet. But someone had added something to the chart. Beneath the normal topography, deeper, there were structures, not natural formations, not bridges or trenches or volcanic features, geometric shapes, hundreds of them, thousands, distributed across the floor of the strait in a grid pattern that extended from the Iranian coast to the Omani coast. Each shape was roughly circular, approximately 200 feet in diameter. It's the same size as the objects surrounding us. "How deep are those?" Corman asked. I checked the depth scale, between 2,000 and 4,000 feet, below the normal bottom. That's impossible. The strait isn't that deep anywhere. I know. But the chart was showing them clearly. Hundreds of geometric shapes sitting in a layer beneath the ocean floor itself, in space that shouldn't exist. The display zoomed in on one of the shapes. The image resolution increased, showing more detail. It looked like the thing I'd seen from the decoverlapping panels arranged in that wrong geometry. It's the kind that made your eyes hurt to track. Then the image changed. The panels shifted, rotated, and the shape opened like a flower blooming in time-lapse. The interior was hollow, a cavity, maybe 100 feet across, and inside it, I couldn't process what I was seeing. It looked organic and mechanical at the same time. Structures that might have been machinery or might have been something else entirely. The scale was wrong. The perspective was wrong. And in the center, a light, pale, blue-green, the same color I'd seen in the water. Corman made a sound I'd never heard from him before. Not quite a gasp, not quite a laugh. The sound of someone's worldview breaking. They live here, he said quietly. They've always been here, beneath us, under the floor. And we never knew. The displays all went black again, stayed dark for exactly 10 seconds. When they came back, they were showing our normal systems. Radar, sonar, communications, all back to standard displays. The 4 surface contacts were gone. I checked the main sonar. Nothing. The water around us was empty, showing only the standard merchant traffic and ambient noise. I pulled up the logs. Contact records I'd been maintaining for 6 days. All 48 entries were gone. The system showed no history of unusual sonar returns, just normal traffic. Commander Price's red phone rang. He picked it up, listened for about 30 seconds, said understood, and hung up. He turned to face the watch team. Combat systems experienced a temporary malfunction, he said, his voice steady and professional. All stations are to log the event as an equipment failure. Duration approximately 15 minutes. COMFIFTHLT is aware and has directed us to continue our mission. We'll have a maintenance team flown out from Bahrain tomorrow to inspect the systems. Till then, we maintain standard watch protocols. He looked directly at Corman, then at me. The malfunction did not produce any actionable intelligence. No unidentified contacts. No unusual sonar returns. Is that clear? Yes, sir, Corman said. I nodded. Price walked out of the CIC. For about 2 minutes, nobody said anything. The watch team just sat at their consoles, staring at the normal displays, showing normal operations. Finally, the Dow cleared his throat. All stations resumed normal watch standing, logged the malfunction as directed. Everyone went back to work, like nothing had happened. Corman walked over to my console and leaned in close, so only I could hear him. Check your phone, he whispered. I pulled it out. Signal was back. I opened my messages. The conversation with Marcus was there again. All of it. Every text we'd exchanged. But the messages had changed. Where I'd written, "We have 4 of them surrounding us," it now said, "Quiet night." Nothing unusual. Where Marcus had written, "Get out of there while you can," it now said, "Same here. It's boring deployment." The entire conversation had been rewritten, not deleted, altered. It's changed to reflect a normal, mundane exchange between 2 brothers complaining about work. They can edit digital records, Corman said, retroactively. It's not just collecting data. They're curating it, controlling the narrative. I closed my phone and put it away. My hands were shaking. What do we do? I asked. We follow orders. We log it as a malfunction. We don't talk about it. For how long? He looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not fear, exactly, something else. Resignation. Until they decide they're done studying us, he said. Or until they decide we're not useful anymore. They pulled the Carney out of the strait 72 hours later. Routine port call in Bahrain for maintenance, according to the official schedule. We moored at NSA Bahrain on a Thursday morning, and by Friday afternoon, The entire sonar department had been reassigned. I was transferred to Newport, Rhode Island, instructor duty at Surface Warfare School, as far from the Gulf as the Navy could put me while keeping me in uniform. Corpsman went to San Diego. Different coast, different fleet, different command. The secondary sonar display was removed from Console 4. The maintenance team came aboard, unbolted it from the mounting bracket, and carried it off the ship in a sealed container. I never saw equipment like it again. Commander Price retired 6 months later. Early retirement, which was unusual for an 05 with his record. He took a position with a defense contractor in Virginia. I looked up the company. Once they specialized in underwater sensing systems and ocean research. I tried to contact Marcus a week after we got back to Bahrain. His phone number had been disconnected. I sent an email to his official Navy address. It bounced back. User not found. I called the personnel office for the porter. They told me no one by that name had ever been assigned to that ship. I pulled his service record through official channels. It existed Marcus Thompson, Lieutenant, United States Navy, but his assignment history had changed. According to the record, he'd been stationed at a training command in Great Lakes for the past 2 years. Never deployed. Never went to sea. I knew that was wrong. I had emails from him, pictures. We'd met for coffee in Norfolk 6 months before I got the orders to the Carney, but I couldn't prove it. And when I tried to find the emails, they were gone. The photos were gone. Even the coffee shop where we'd met Ty drove past it one weekend had closed. The building was empty. For lease sign in the window. It was like someone had gone through my life and systematically removed every piece of evidence that I'd had a brother in the Navy. But I knew I did. I knew it. So I stopped looking because I understood what would happen if I kept pushing. I'd end up like Marcus Cirrus, reassigned to a desk job. My deployment history rewritten to show I'd never been there. I kept my head down, did my job at Surface Warfare School, taught young officers about sonar theory and submarine classification. I didn't mention the secondary display, didn't talk about low-frequency contacts or impossible maneuvers. But I kept watching the data, not officially, not through Navy channels. I used public databases, oceanographic research networks, seismic monitoring stations, civilian tools that couldn't be classified or restricted, and I saw the patterns. Acoustic events, logged by research institutions as unexplained phenomena or equipment errors. They appeared in the Gulf, the Mediterranean, the South China Sea, always in strategic waterways, always near naval operating areas. They were spreading, or maybe they weren't spreading. Maybe they'd always been there, and they were just becoming more active, more visible, more willing to let us know they existed. A year after I left the Carney, I found a research paper published by a geologist at UC San Diego. She'd been studying seismic data from the Arabian Sea and had found evidence of anomalous subsurface structures beneath the sediment layer. Geometric formations that didn't match any known geological process. Her paper included depth charts that looked exactly like what I'd seen on the displays in the CIC that night. The same grid pattern, the same circular shapes. The paper was published in April. By June, it had been retracted. The university released a statement saying the data had been corrupted and the conclusions were invalid. I tried to contact the geologist. Her email bounced. Her university profile page was gone. Pattern recognition. That was always my strength, seeing connections that others missed. And I was seeing one now. Every time someone got too close to discovering them, they disappeared. Not killed, just erased. Reassigned, discredited. Their work deleted or discredited. It wasn't a government cover-up. It was something else. Something coordinated across nations, across institutions, across the entire infrastructure of modern information systems. They were protecting the secret. But not because they wanted to keep us ignorant. They were protecting it because we weren't ready. Because if the general public knew what was beneath the ocean floor, beneath every major waterway on Earth, it would cause panic, collapse, chaos. So they kept it quiet. And they kept studying them, and they kept making deals. I didn't know. but I had suspicions. In 2019, the Navy publicly acknowledged the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena, UFO videos that had been leaked years earlier. They confirmed the videos were real, that the objects were real, and that they didn't know what they were. But they never mentioned the underwater ones. Never talked about the sonar contacts that appeared and disappeared without following physics. Never discussed the acoustic signals in frequency ranges that shouldn't carry across ocean water. Never acknowledged the network of structures beneath the seafloor, 'cause the aerial ones, those were someone else's. Foreign technology, maybe, something from somewhere else. But the underwater ones were here first. They'd been here longer than we had. And I think, somewhere high up in the chain of command, someone had decided that we needed to coexist with them. That meant keeping them secret. That meant erasing anyone who got too close to exposing them. That meant sacrificing people like me and Corman and Marcus to maintain the lie. I'm writing this from my apartment in Newport, 2 miles from the Naval War College where I teach. It's 0230 on a Tuesday morning in October. I should be asleep, but I can't, because 3 hours ago I checked the seismic data feeds I monitor every night, and I saw a new pattern forming. Low-frequency events, 19 Hz, appearing in a grid formation off the coast of New England, not in deep water. In shallow coastal areas, 200 to 400 feet deep. One of them is 19 miles off the coast of Newport, exactly 19 miles from where I'm sitting right now. I pulled up a map and plotted all the recent events. They form a pattern along the Atlantic seaboard: Boston, New York, Norfolk, Charleston. Every major naval base on the East Coast. They're not hiding anymore. They're positioning themselves. And that 19-mile contact isn't moving. It's just sitting there, waiting. I think they know I'm watching. I think they've known the whole time. I think that's why they let me keep my memories when they erased Marcus. They wanted someone to see. Someone to understand. Someone to prepare. For what? I don't know. But I know what I'm going to do. It's tomorrow morning. I'm going to request leave. I'm going to rent a boat. And I'm going to sail out to that contact 19 miles offshore, because I need to see it again. I need to confirm what I already know. They've been here the whole time. It's beneath us, watching us build our ships, map our oceans, wage our wars, waiting. And now, for some reason, they're ready to be seen. Maybe they want something from us. Maybe they're warning us. Maybe they're preparing us for something we don't understand yet. Or maybe they're just tired of hiding. I'll find out tomorrow. If I don't come back, if this document is all that's left, then you need to know. They're real. They're everywhere. They're in every ocean, beneath every major waterway, under the floor itself, in places that shouldn't exist. The Navy knows. The government knows. Someone high up in every major nation knows. And they've decided to keep it secret, because the truth would change everything. But the truth is coming anyway, because they're not staying hidden anymore. Check the data. Look at the seismic readings, the unexplained acoustic events, the sonar contacts that get logged and then deleted. Look at the patterns. And when you see a contact at 19 Hz appearing in a place it shouldn't be, holding a position that doesn't make sense, don't ignore it. Don't write it off as equipment failure. Don't let them erase it from your memory, because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And they want us to see. Think that's the point. Addendum, October 16th, 0847. I'm writing this from the boat, 15 miles offshore. Signal is intermittent, but I need to get this down while I can still think clearly. The contact is visible now, not on sonar with my eyes. The water is glowing. It's the same pale blue-green I saw from the Carney, but it's different this time. Brighter, more intense. And there are more of them. It's not just one contact. Dozens, maybe hundreds, spreading out in a line along the coast as far as I can see. They're all surfacing simultaneously. I can see the panels, the geometric shapes, rising slowly through the glowing water. The grinding sound is so loud, I can hear it over the engine. They're not hiding anymore. My phone is buzzing. It's text messages, hundreds of them, coming through all at once as my contacts start seeing what I'm seeing. People along the coast from Maine to Florida, all reporting the same thing. Lights in the water, structures surfacing, things that shouldn't exist. The news is starting to pick it up, okay? I can see the alerts on my phone. Unexplained phenomena along East Coast. Navy deploys vessels to investigate unusual activity, but it's too late to investigate. It's too late to cover it up. They're here. They're showing themselves, and I think the boat just lurched. Engine cut out. All electronics dead. The structure beneath me is rising. I can see it now, directly below. The panels rotating, the geometry shifting. It's huge, much bigger than the ones in Hormuz, maybe 500 feet across. 2 circular sections are glowing, okay? The eyes looking up at me, and I can feel it again. That vibration, okay? That voice, that isn't a voice. It's saying something different this time, okay? Not "we see you," something else. "We are ready." Are you? I don't know how to answer that. I don't think I have to, because as I'm watching, the panels are shifting again, opening, and something is emerging from the center. Not machinery, not weapons. Light, pure light. Blue-green and blinding and impossibly bright. And in the light, I can see end of transmission, recovered document, Naval Criminal Investigative Service File. NAS-Newport-224-1016 classification. Redacted. The above document was recovered from a personal laptop belonging to LTJG Joseph M. Thompson, USN, found aboard an unmanned 22-foot recreational vessel located 19 nautical miles southeast of Newport, RE, on October 16, 2024. No other evidence of LTJG Thompson was found aboard the vessel. Electronics were non-functional. Engine showed no mechanical damage, but would not start. Water samples collected from the recovery site showed elevated levels of redacted, consistent with previous incidents in the Arabian Gulf 2023 and Mediterranean Sea 2023 to 2024. Document has been classified and restricted to personnel with redacted clearance or higher. Its investigation ongoing. All requests for information regarding LTJG Thompson's whereabouts should be directed to Comnaverscom with appropriate security clearance verification. Official status: missing, presumed lost at sea. Actual status: redacted. They're still there, still waiting, still watching. And now you know too. And